Welcome, horror fam, to HHN365, Halloween Horror Nights podcast. My name is Mike, and I am with my co-hosts Duff, Jess, and Jonathan. Jess is here today.
I'm back. It's
Welcome
been
back.
forever. Woo! The supervisor is here, as I was referred to while I was away.
We're going to be back in check now.
Yeah, okay.
As always, you can find us on Twitter, Instagram. We also have a new Threads and YouTube at HHN365 and at TikTok at HHN365pod. We have an amazing Discord channel. The link is in the description. And we have a merch shop at HHN365.com. You can always leave us a voicemail at 407-906-4134. On today's show, we'll be going over the third iteration of the HHN Nightmares spec map, as well as talking about a lot of Japan announcements and news and rumors.
Yay, Spec Map.
Yeah, Spec Map, Japan. We have a whole giant Japan segment.
Thanks, Jonathan.
I wrote a whole segment. I don't know anything about their event, so it's going to be fun.
It's your Japan thesis.
Yeah. Well, we should hop right into it because we have a lot to cover.
Yeah, let's do it. And let's start with the big hitter, and then we'll get to all the other news. Because all of this stuff is news and rumors at the end of the day. The biggest of it being a bunch of rumors from our Volume 3 spec map. So let's do it. We got it for both Orlando and Hollywood. Where do we want to start?
I'm thinking we just start right in Orlando, right? And then we'll do Hollywood right after.
Down for that. All right, so let's... you want me to just kind of read it off real quick, and then we'll get a little deeper into it.
Yeah, I think that's works.
So we do, of course, have 10 houses. IPs, we have Chucky, shocker. The Last of Us, shocker. Universal Monsters Paris, The Exorcist, nothing, no tagline, nothing like that. Stranger Things 4. And for originals, we have a guitar with red horns around it. We have the Oddfellows Carnival logo. We have, again, the same like witchy looking town kind of thing. And now we have a logo, and this eliminates Demon Slayer finally. Thank God. I was tired of people asking about Demon Slayer. No offense to people who did. A bunch of trees with like 3 claw scratches across them. Now for scare zones, there are only 4 traditional scare zones listed. That is going to be Vamp 69, Jungle, horns that are absolutely of Krampus, and Horror Night Nightmares even confirmed that, and Zodiacs. Then we also do have additional hordes with the Carnival of Oddities horde, the Megan horde, and then there are also Death Eaters listed in Diagon Alley. And then our shows being a Vamp show, interesting, and Nightmare Fuel.
Yeah.
Which I think, so we'll talk about later, but I think it's more than a rumor. So yeah,
Unfortunately.
So what excites you guys the most about this? Like, what is the most like exciting or like shocking?
I feel like we gotta get the big one out of the way, right?
The Exorcist.
I hate you. Yeah. It's no longer
Stranger Things 4. Yeah, Stranger Things 4. Right, got it. Let's do it. I mean, we've talked about it for a while now, right? I think it's kind of been a very strong rumor for like 2 months at least at this point.
At least.
Even though it had been shot down for a few months before that publicly. So it's been an interesting spec season as far as Stranger Things goes, but since it popped up a few months ago, it's only gotten stronger and stronger. So I don't think there's really too many people surprised about this.
This is the first time it's specifically mentioned on a spec map, right?
Yep.
It's been alluded to. It's been rumored for a very long time, but this is the first time it shows up, plain as day. Stranger Things.
Yeah. And I know there are a lot of people in the community who kind of like a rumor is not officially a rumor until it's on Horror Night Nightmare spec maps. Mm-hmm. So here you go. It's officially a rumor now. Enjoy that.
And I mean, if you know, I know we talked about it a bit in the past because we've talked about Stranger Things 4 a bit, but if this IP lineup that we see on this map ends up being like correct for the actual event, this is possibly like the biggest IP lineup they've ever had.
It has to be.
With the Stranger Things 4 combo with The Last of Us. I mean, Chucky's an incredibly big horror icon. Universal Monster's not as big, but it's still powerful. And I mean, The Exorcist, as much as we don't like it, it obviously other people do. And people, like, especially in Hollywood, when they had it in 2021, that house always got insane waits. Like, it was incredibly popular.
Hmm.
I mean, The Exorcist has a huge name when it comes just to horror movies. Does it execute well as a house? I think that is, where the debate is. But just to draw, just the name draw alone, Exorcist is huge. It's a huge name draw. Is it executed well? Should it be at the event? That's a totally different debate. But just for like casuals, I mean, everyone knows what The Exorcist is. I would argue that it's potentially a bigger draw than The Last of Us, just name recognition wise.
Absolutely. And like, I feel like people forget that The Exorcist had a lot of controversy when it came out. So a lot of the older generations, they see that in marketing and, they're going to tell maybe their kids like, hey, maybe you should go. Cause I remember this movie scared the shit out of me. Like my mom talks about it all the time. She refused to see it and she still does to this day. So I think that's a big draw just alone in itself because the older generations, this is their big movie.
Yeah.
I will say it is kind of interesting if this is the case for them to simply just go, you know what, we were going to do Exorcist Believer, but now we're not. So let's get rights from a different company for The Exorcist. I don't know. It feels a little odd. I don't know how you guys feel about that. If like,
it doesn't make too much sense.
No, it doesn't. Because like, it would be one thing if it was just like, okay, rights are the same, so we're just gonna do the original Exorcist now. They're not the same. So,
I forgot about that.
Yeah, I don't know. I just think it's kind of weird, and maybe this part isn't completely accurate because it just wouldn't. I don't understand the thought process behind that. You would think, especially because if you're working with Blumhouse, you probably want to continue to work with Blumhouse, and of course, we see the Megan rumor, but maybe like Insidious or something like that.
The only thing that comes to my mind about like why we would see the original Exorcist on this map is if Believer was just completely wrong the entire time. It was always just the original Exorcist.
Yeah.
But also, Believer seemed like a very strong rumor for a while in the community. And like, obviously things can change. And, there has been a lot of problems with this Spec season and things just completely being wrong and being messed up and changed. But Exorcist Believer seemed like one of those really strong ones. So,
yeah. But also, we're forgetting that Exorcist 50th is this year, or was this year.
Oh,
so
yeah.
That alone, they could just market the house as that.
I will say, Universal has tended to completely ignore anniversaries. Because people, every year, there's like 4 properties that people are like, it's their 25th, it's their 50th, it's their 80th. And it seems like Horror Nights has never once gave a fuck about that.
Maybe they had to this year because Believer had to go into reshoots.
I mean, maybe.
I don't know.
Maybe. Who knows? I don't know. I'm just saying, out of IPs, well, obviously, because 2 are already confirmed.
Yeah.
Feels the iffiest for sure.
I completely agree. I feel like if any IP was going to change on this map here, it is like 99% this one compared to the others because the other ones seem really either already announced or incredibly strong rumors.
Oh yeah.
And then we should have been keeping track of this from the start. Stranger Things 4, let's compare it to last year. I think that's the easiest. Located where Fiesta de Chupacabra's entrance was. The Exorcist is located in the Music Plaza stage entrance.
Is Stranger Things in a weird spot for anybody else? I feel like it should be either on the right side where, Dead Man's was, or where Exorcist is. Because, I know the line is long enough, but, I really feel like they need something on an end where they can extend the queue when needed, because they're going to need to.
Yeah, I will say it is interesting because the one where the Dragon Castle logo, it does have that additional switchback area they can use.
Yeah, that whole, parking lot on the right or whatever.
Whereas, unless they work this out quite a bit different than they typically do, Stranger Things space does not have much additional. It's basically just what you walk through, and then all the switchbacks you normally see.
And
Yeah.
wasn't
And 29
Stranger
sorry,
Things?
Jonathan.
Oh, sorry. Wasn't Stranger Things 2 and 3 where the Dragon's Castle one on the map was?
The line
Like,
was, but it was in the soundstage across.
okay, so maybe it could be something like that situation.
Mm-hmm.
Because
I mean, that is, yeah. But it would be weird that it's the interior one if that is the case. And we
Yeah.
could be looking too much into where it's placed on the spec
Absolutely.
map, of course. But, I mean, that's kind of the point of the spec map. We get to say what we think about it.
Mhm.
So, yeah, if it was going to Soundstage 25, the one that's kind of like back behind it, it would be a weird starting point to put it in the interior queue.
It's going to clog that whole corner up. And that's where all of those houses exit from. That's why it's weird to me too. If the line or like the express line, like not the express line, but like where they look at the pass, like if that gets backed up like it always does, it's going to be fucked right there.
Yeah, definitely.
But I'm nitpicking too much about that.
Do we want to talk about the other, like, I think huge change on this list, or that is like the replacement that
the Monster Energy house? I'm sorry, that's the Monster Energy claw. You cannot tell me I'm wrong.
You're not wrong.
But it's red.
Okay, I'm so sorry. It's like
blood.
A Monster Red or whatever.
Cherry Monster.
Ooh.
Yeah, no, you're not wrong. That literally looks like the Monster logo. So, but it definitely implies woods and claw marks. And we've heard kind of like a Yeti, Sasquatch, Bigfoot rumor. Yeah, that kind of seems like this fits the bill.
Yeah, it's kind of giving. I don't know if it's a spoiler because it was last year at Knott's, but it's giving the beginning of Grimoire. And the middle when you walk through the tent. That's what I think of. I know it's completely different. There wasn't like a beast in there, but I saw that and I was like, there's got to be like a campsite involved or something.
Yeah, it definitely. I mean, with the woods, of course, it seems very like kind of campy. Like Friday the 13th is what comes to mind, like that kind of camp setting.
You're speaking my language.
Yeah, I know. That's why I said it that way.
Yeah, I know we talked about the Yeti rumor and how they could do it different. I think a summer camp setting, I think, is a good way to make it a little bit different than the Yukon, the logging setting. So I think this could be fun.
It's a good way to make it like a little bit different. But do we think, like, obviously all we have right now is a symbol, so we are completely pulling stuff out of our butts and trying to figure out what this could mean. But let's say it is a Yeti setting, but like a Yeti character or a big some like a creature in the woods. Do we think that setting change and possibly character design change is enough to really differentiate it from like Yeti Terror of the Yukon?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I think even if of course, it'd be a slight character change because they aren't going to put like the snow-ridden Yetis in like not snow. But even if it looked exactly the same, but they were just a different color, if the setting is completely different and it was a direct sequel, I think it works enough because like that's what a sequel is. And it works even more so if it's not a sequel and they are different characters, or if it is a sequel and they are different characters too. So I think, there's definitely enough I can't speak. There's enough difference between those. And I think if you look at it like we've had similar settings before, but just different kinds of monsters or creatures within them. And, they don't automatically tie together in your head just because of that. So,
I mean, this could be our comedy house, guys. This could be really funny. This could be silly.
Full camp, like camp and camp.
Camp
and exactly.
like camp in the camp, like camping in a tent sense, but also like camp in like the funny aspect.
Yeah, definitely. I think that can make it way different if it's like a silly, like as someone who's worked as a camp counselor at a summer camp, I think there's a lot to play there that could be very funny if it is the camp setting.
For sure.
I think if you're looking just like kind of at the logos and what you would infer from the originals, it really kind of feels like the only one where there's a possibility of it being kind of campy and humorous.
Yeah, that's true. Like
Yeah,
at least in
for
terms
sure.
of originals, definitely seems
Obviously,
like
Chucky is, you know.
Different. It's a different monster. Energy.
I mean,
Ah.
I'm on the record, guys, that summer camp scare zone at SeaWorld Orlando,
Oh yeah,
this
the werewolf
Hellscream
one.
was one of the werewolf one was one of the best scare zones of that year.
I
Like
agree.
it was,
Agreed.
I
Yeah.
fully agree.
so I think there's a lot that could be that if this is a house, they could really there's a lot to work with.
okay, if they take that vibe from that scare zone and just replace the monster, and obviously make it HHNified and a house setting, that could be incredible. Like
Yeah.
I'm just like that vibe could really work in a house setting, more not even just in a scare zone, but if you really expand upon it, it could end up being really funny while also really gory and really intense at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
Because this claw mark also like the red claw mark insinuates to me that this one also might have a little more gore like compared to at least the other symbols here. It definitely looks like this one is meant for some creature like ripping people apart or stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It could also have a bunch of different settings, I feel like. And obviously, like Yeti in 2019 was like a setting house. It was in the snow. It was cold, all that shit. But we could have lakeside. We could be like deep in like the forest and the trees. Like there are options. It could rain. I don't know. Things happen. You're outside.
That's true.
You're fully outside.
Mm-hmm.
Like I kind of love that. I'm kind of more excited for this now than I guess Demon Slayer was here before, but I was already more excited for anything than Demon Slayer. No offense, guys. I know
it's hard to get excited for something that's literally just not feasible.
Yeah, I'm excited to see if this pans out.
And I don't believe we mentioned it, but this is located where you would have found the Hellblock Horror entrance last year.
Yeah.
So the power of H will live within this house.
They're just gonna leave the costume from that one scene in Hellblock in there for
right.
the Yeti to. Oh, actually, I wanted to say something before we move on from this one. I really hope there's a callback if this is like a Yeti monster house or something like that to the one scare in 29 with the arm through the body.
Oh yes,
like how we had in Dead
great.
Man's the callback to Yeti. I would love to see that.
Yeah, that'd be phenomenal. So let's stick with the soundstage houses then. We got 2 left. And going over to where you would have entered Halloween last year, we have the kind of witchy looking town logo. That's the same that we've seen previously on the spec maps.
Salem, maybe? Witches? We've been saying the same thing. I don't know how much more I can say about this. I can't get excited for a witch house again. I refuse to have expectations. I'm sorry. I was burned last year. I know Mike feels me on that.
I do.
I can't do it. So, I'm just going to go in with neutral thoughts on this.
Yeah. I mean, it's like a historical witch house. Like I've been burned before, right? Like
you can't fool me.
I hope it's good.
Amazing.
But I have been burned by
we shall see.
I hope in terms of really comparing this somewhat to Spirits of the Coven, that Universal saw the reactions to Spirits of the Coven and went, "Oh, we gotta have a witch house out this year right away. We need to show that we can actually make a good witch house, because the last one that won't work. So we need to make another one and just prove ourselves." So part of me hopes that's what this one is, and a way to say, "All right, guys, we can do a good witch house. Look." So it's going to be low on my hype list if it eventually comes and it stays on the map and ends up being on the actual lineup, just because of the relationship I have with the Spirits of the Coven. But I have hopes that it will be a lot better, strictly because of the fact that they probably know Spirits was not well received at all.
You're better than me. I can't have hopes.
I will say, based off just this little clip art image we're staring at, it would seem to be very different than Spirits of the Coven, though.
Yeah.
Looks like a town from like the 1600s,
I love a cult.
So yeah, it should be different enough where we don't take that into account, but we're going to anyways. It's only natural.
Oops.
Especially since it was just last year.
Yeah, I can't not compare. I'm sorry.
Mm-hmm. All right, and we'll move on down to where you would have entered Dead Man's Pier. at HHN31, that is going to be the return of Dragon Castle, which we've talked about on the past couple episodes now, I believe, where that rumor has really turned into specifically dueling dragons. Yes, the old attraction from Islands of Adventure.
Yeah.
Yes.
Which,
everything.
exciting. Jess, were you here for the episode?
No, I don't think so.
Oh, please take the floor.
You know what's funny is someone on another podcast kind of went off for like 5 minutes about how this house isn't going to work and how they're not excited for it. I'm calling you out. But they know who they are if they hear this. But
Shots fired.
I'm sorry, I had to. Their co-host also said something on our Quiplash. I'm sorry, but just like, let's even take away Dueling Dragons. A Renaissance medieval house would be so fucking cool. I don't even care if I see a whole dragon, knights and like ladies in waiting and shit like that. The times back then were brutal. Like the knights would just fight to the death. Like, have you ever been to a Ren fair? I think that it would be so fucking cool. So I'm excited. And I also, like, growing up in high school, what my best friend did, like, this society that they like ran a tent at the Renfest. So I was at Renfest a lot. So I watched a lot of the jousting and the knights fighting, and like the finale was always like a bloody one. So I think there's so much potential here. And the fact that it might be based on like an attraction that had so much lore built into it. And the queue was genuinely terrifying when I was a child for Dueling Dragons. So I am so excited. Rant over.
Yeah. Let's not forget the original HHN house was Dungeons of Terror, right? Like it had like the medieval-ish type of vibe, right? Like this is not something they've never done before. I think it can work.
No, and I think fantasy in general is something that's underutilized by HHN. And I think this is kind of the perfect way to implement it into your event. And I think there's been so many people kind of like shitting on the idea of it, not just because it's about dragons or anything else, but they're like, it's themed off a roller coaster. That's like, yeah, no, it had a backstory and lore, and like the queue was very detailed and beautiful, and I think there's a lot to work with here.
Wasn't there an actor in the queue like way back in the day?
I think early on, yeah.
Yeah, I feel like there was like a wizard or something, like kind of like how we had a scare actor in the Kong queue at IRA.
Oh yeah, it makes sense because it was in Merlinwood, I believe. So
there was somebody there. Like, I'm sorry, I just disagree
because Blizzrock and Pyrock were Merlin's dragons or something along those lines, I believe.
Sure. Yeah.
I need to brush up on the lore myself, clearly, but I think that's the case.
Same. But like a dragon, a cat, like a castle facade. I loved Scary Tales, obviously, from 28. So even if they just like take that castle and just like zhuzh it a little bit, I'll be happy. I'm sorry. I'm easy to please.
I think this is an easy win if they can get the setting right, which I'm sure they will, and they can get like a lot of the normal jump scares out. I'm sure not every jump scare, if this is true, ends up being a dragon. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of other characters in here that could, end up, being nice little jump scares and, relating to the times and stuff. My only fear, if this ends up being true, is the execution of the dragon slash whatever, types of dragons they want to have in here. Because I remember how, and this is it's sort of different. I remember how excited I was for Chupacabra, and Fiesta de Chupacabra, and I found that I loved everything in the house besides the actual Chupacabra. And it hurt it because when the title is Chupacabra, that should be the thing that ends up being the most powerful, the thing you remember the most. So my only hope is that for a house that is, has dragons in the title, that the dragons are actually, look really good for, guests looking at it. And it's not just, oh, the actual setting is great, but the dragons are they kind of look really fake and all that,
I will say, if it truly is Dueling Dragons, I don't think they're going to stray from the design of the dragons that existed, Blizzrock and Pyrock. So, and they were amazing looking. So,
okay,
hopefully that's not an issue.
I hope so. That'd be. I mean, if they kept to those designs like really closely and executed them well, that could look incredible on a house setting.
Agreed. And then let's just kind of wrap around all the houses before we get to any of the shows and scare zones. And following along the path that would lead us to Fast and Furious, where we have Chucky.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've talked about Chucky enough. I don't.
We have. I'm excited.
The
It can work in this
change.
location.
Yeah, we've been talking about that.
It makes sense, I think. They can do the 2-season split thing if they want. That would work. They can.
Yep.
They don't really need massive sets for this. That works. Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah. Charles Lee Ray.
Charles Entertainment.
Chili Lee Ray.
We all said 3 different names, but the same thing.
Right, Mike, what name you got? Come on.
Chucky.
All right.
Actually, someone should use his real. I was going to say government, but no, that name.
His government name.
His government name is
Chucky.
Charles Entertainment Murder is what we call him.
Charles Entertainment.
What's his actual? What is the dog?
Charles Lee Ray.
Buddy is the actual name of the dog,
it's
right?
Buddy.
Mm-hmm.
My friend Buddy or my pal, but I don't know. Aaron's screaming at me right now.
Yeah, probably.
I'm sorry.
All right, we'll just move on. Going over to this is kind of interesting locations too that we can discuss. They have 2 entrances at the Men in Black tent entrance, which don't lead to the Men in Black tent anymore.
I didn't even realize that.
Yeah. If you're looking at last year, that's where Bugs Eaten Alive would have entered. The first one of those is the Oddfellows Carnival logo, which we've discussed for quite a while now, the possibilities of this being a house, and maybe him being involved in the event even further than that. I don't think I've ever really fully discussed my feelings other than, yeah, Oddfellow would be cool. The house itself, I'm going to be honest, I have concerns. I don't love the carnival vibe. I feel it's way overused in haunts and typically doesn't hit. So if they just kind of go for full out making it a carnival aesthetic, I don't think I'm going to be a huge fan. I hope it delves more into like backstory and lore and kind of avoids just being like at the carnival. But I don't know if that'll be the case. So those are my concerns about this house. I don't know. We'll see. I'm excited about who it is. I'm not excited about what it's based around.
Those are really fair concerns because I haven't even thought about it, and I've always been excited at the prospect of how Oddfellow has for been a long time been rumored as the icon of the event. It's like, oh, cool! Now you have an icon and an icon house in the same year. That's really cool. But I've never thought, what if it's kind of just it has him and but it's kind of just his carnival, and it doesn't really focus that much on the character, and it focuses more on the character's backstory and history and sort of where he came from, but like that whole trope of characters. So I could see how it could end up being sort of, I don't want to say basic, but sort of like a very common trope that lots of haunts do. And I hope that isn't the case. I hope they have a way to really differentiate it and make it so it is clear that you aren't just walking through a normal carnival. You're walking through Oddfellows Carnival, and Oddfellow has weird stuff that you're going to see that you wouldn't expect from this type of environment.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think the main thing that's I have the same concern stuff, but I think the main thing that's going to make me really like this house is if they lean into the lore and they lean into like the setting. If it's like the set into the 1920s or 30s, if they really lean into like and make it feel kind of like almost like American Horror Story Freak Show type of vibe.
That's exactly what I was thinking. It really kind of focused more on the time setting and also place setting as well, rather than just the freak show itself.
Like, did you guys ever watch Carnival on HBO? That was like a HBO show about like 10-15 years ago.
I did not.
It was like that type of Dust Bowl type of setting for Carnival. I think it could be really cool.
Yeah, I hope we lean into, like you said, the historical like side of it, obviously with Oddfellow and everything, but vintage clowns and stuff like that are genuinely creepy if you look them up. Like that's what Jack's based off of. Obviously is a little more like cartoony and characterized, whatever. But I really hope it's that. And a lot of circuses and like traveling circuses came to like Naples was a big area and like, Central Florida or whatever. So I kind of hope it's like set in our setting. I think that's always kind of cool if it like leans into that, which is why like Swamp Yeti was kind of cool because, growing up in the Everglades, it was kind of just like that setting camp style. So I'm excited to see it again. I love HHN history, obviously we all do, but I don't know if I needed an Oddfellow house ever. I don't think that was anything I ever like wanted. So I'm just curious to see what they do with it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely curious. I will say that. I would like to point out also, the last ever icon to have a solo house actually was in this exact entrance location,
Oh wow!
and it
Oh.
was one of the worst houses ever to come to the event.
Take
Oh
a
my
chance.
Just
take
pointing
a
that
chance,
out there.
Take a
Oh,
chance.
God.
So,
Yeah, I mean,
hey,
I was about to
Oddfellows can't be
say,
worse.
like,
That's
if it's
true.
just like a carnival 3D, like, obviously they're not going to do
Oh
3D.
no!
Oh my god!
Oh,
I hope
God.
it's 3D, Mike. Thank you so much for saying that. I
Yeah,
can't
if
wait.
it was something like that, just like your classic, like, oh, here we go, clowns on carnival, like,
It's cheap when they do
Yeah.
that. It's so cheap. I know other haunts do it, and I'm not trying to call other haunts cheap, but like something of HHN's caliber should not be touching like just cheap party store clowns.
No.
It's
But I don't
If you want to
think
bring
they will.
back 3D houses, the carnival setting is not the place to do it.
no.
I really think that this is going to be like, lore and, history type of setting. Like they've been really good about building, think of like Dead Man's Pier and Chupacabra, like the worlds that they can build when they put into like a very distinct place. I think this could be like that. If, as long as they focus on the setting, and really build from there.
Do you think they'll ever decorate the outside of one of the sprung tents like for something like this?
I mean, yeah.
We haven't seen it, so I
I
mean,
would
we've
just
seen
make it like
facades.
yeah.
Like paint it. I don't know. Or
Yeah.
like,
Oh, like actually, like
Make
I
it
don't
look
know.
like
I don't know.
Oh,
I'm just
I don't
saying.
know. Oh,
I'm just saying.
That
You
would
don't
be
know?
cool.
No,
Just
no,
throw on, yeah.
I don't know.
Even
It's
if it's just
carnival.
like a big laminate sticker or something to make
Yeah,
it
just
look
like
like.
maybe they just drape some fabric over the existing tent. Just a big blanket.
All right, moving on. Literally one stanchion over, as these two are literally on each other's back. We have the guitar with devil horns, which I think is kind of the longest standing big rumor of the event, which is the kind of crossroads, Robert Johnson, Devil Went Down to Georgia style, devil takes someone's soul for talent kind of shit. Yeah, over there, and I assume would be Sprung Tent 1, the way this is laid out.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean,
I
this
think
one,
we're all pretty excited. Right?
I'm excited, but I have
Mhm.
no clue what they're gonna do for the imagery for this characters. Like, obviously, they can't. Are they gonna really lean into the religious devil aspect? They can't. That can't be the whole
No.
thing, right? And if they do, they're gonna be like silly, kind of like cartoonish. That could be bad. So I don't know. I really
What if
don't know what
it's
they.
just like satanic imagery? What if it's not like not like full, you know what I mean? Like, but what if it's just kind of something like that, or like something to symbolize? Like, I don't know. What if the story ties it? I don't know.
Yeah, I
Crocodile
mean,
comes back, and Crocodile is the devil.
I know they have steered clear of like the religious imagery in the past, but we'll see what this looks like. I mean, and then they've also done it in a cartoonish manner in like Legendary Truth, most recently, like Case Files.
Oh
So,
yeah.
I will say it seems they've not really had an issue showing kind of like the devil or satanic side of things, as long as it's not directly like opposing any of the religious
like angels and
aspects.
demons,
Like
right.
like the fallen, like literally what they did was just kind of get rid of like the angels and that part of it, and basically just left it like demons and devil based.
Yeah, that's true. I'm excited. I'm just kind of concerned because like in my head this takes place also in like a certain decade. I don't know what decade that is in my head, but is it too close to Oddfellow?
Similar.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like that's my
Probably.
thing. Is they're next to each other. They're both in the South. They're both like in the same kind of climate. Like maybe that's cool. Like that little corner is like the South. But
Just got a little bayou over there at the Sprung Tents.
oh yeah, what if they build like a whole the whole thing like connects?
They're connected.
Yeah.
Hmm?
I mean, this is all like like just ridiculous speculation at this point. But yeah, I don't know. It's just that's the only thing that I'm like, ooh. I know we've had both of these on here for a while, but they seem a little kind of close right now in
Yeah.
setting.
Yeah, I see what you mean.
Especially when on the map they're literally right next to each other too. Like
They're
it's
just
easier
like
to
sisters.
Yeah, they're gonna have to definitely lean into their different differentiating aspects where they could be in the same time period, but well, one is gonna be like Dust Bowl, like Texas type of, like really like, and the other one is gonna be more like a Georgia swamp type of a setting where they could have a different vibe if they really chose to make it different, even if it's
absolutely.
the similar-ish time period.
Mm-hmm.
This is definitely like I think out of all the originals here, this is the one that I don't know if it's the thing. I want it to be the one that I'm the most hyped for. I also think it's the one that has the most chance for like a flawed execution, because if they try to implement the story of obviously a different slightly different story of Crossroads and Devil Went Down to Georgia, and make it sort of somewhat story focused like that, it has a chance of really knocking out of the park and being a fantastic story driven house. And it also has a chance of not telling the story well, and then the whole house falls flat, because it's very difficult to tell stories in houses like coherently, especially with the originals. It seems like they're better at telling, like, using environments and stuff to really tell the story compared to actually telling linear stories, for the most part. So I think in order for this thing to work, if it's what's been rumored for a while, they really need to nail the story aspect of it.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think, to be honest, I'd probably say that last line, the same for every house. I think story is
True.
very important to me 99% of the time. But I do get what you're saying in this specific instance where it's very important.
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's keep moving on. Another interesting note as we come around the Sprung Tent area is that where Sprung Tent 2 normally enters, as in where you would have gone into like Wicked Growth, is now not listed and probably an exit for the Sprung Tents, I'd assume. And The Last of Us is entering where Sprung Tent 1 previously used to enter. Last would have been used for the Puppet Theater, and for 31 was an exit, which would make sense if this is a parade warehouse because you just kind of shoot straight down that road. But that is The Last of Us. We've spent 2 whole episodes talking about it. 1 whole episode was literally just talking about The Last of Us, so I don't know that we need to add anything. But
I wasn't here.
Yes, except Jess, please.
Still haven't finished the show. I know this is based off the game, and I know that was the speculation going into it. So again, you've heard all of this, but my husband has downloaded the game, and I will be playing it before the event. So I'm excited to see. I'll probably like the game more. That's just how my brain is. But I love anything that's going to give us really intense makeup. Obviously, I've talked about it before. So I think that this is really cool, and just based off like the Murdy like tweets he was talking about, like the bloater costume. I'm really excited to see how they approach this practically.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Definitely.
review to come.
Yeah, this is going to be the special effect house.
I'm going to love it just for that.
Yeah.
And other reasons, but we'll get there when we get there.
And then if we're going to move down, another interesting location, and this is of course because of everything going on in Kids Zone. Mainly nothing. It's just walls. You can't get there. Doesn't exist. I'm sorry. Universal Monsters Paris is entering where you normally exit out of ET. It would appear. Where does that have you exiting? Same way. Out towards Sprung Tents. Out towards the Esoteric Gate. Who knows?
I would assume that if we're gonna have Last of Us exit over there, I would assume that they would just funnel them out because you'd be leaving out that side door. I would assume as always.
It would make sense flow-wise to exit out towards the Sprung Tents, I think.
Yeah, like one way. And then that also pushes people towards the back of the park, even if they start in the middle, which is kind of smart.
It's a
And if
trek either way, because
either way, it's a
Esoteric
bit
is
of a
kinda
walk.
close. And
Esoteric is,
yeah.
I think the thing with Esoteric though is then it's mainly road, so you're looking at operational concerns, and so
You would
just kind
also
of
be
stick it where it's already
Yeah,
something.
you don't really want to send guests deep back
No.
there, like on that road.
you'd also funnel them directly into a scare zone. And I
Yeah.
don't know if that would be safe for the
That's true.
actors if it's like a really long line for something like, The Last of Us or Monsters.
Yeah, they've never done that before.
Yeah, you'd literally pop out in dead center of 2 scare zones and where a stage is currently listed. So
Yeah, that's
at
not happening.
Esoteric Gate. So it would make more sense that it just kind of pop out at like the Sprung Tent exit area. So we'll see. But everything from Sprung Tents and Parade Warehouse is kind of very interesting, both entrance and exit wise. I am very curious to see how it actually look and how it will operate, because that is always a big concern, because we know for the first, like, at least first weekend, Bugs Eaten Alive, that operationally testing
Oof.
something new out was not great.
Pack your patience.
They got it together, but man, it was a rough start.
Yeah.
So potentially expect that to be the case for all 4 of these locations, at least for the first week or 2.
That's half the houses almost.
Yeah, I know.
Pack your patience, everybody. The ops people are going to be going through it as well.
Opening night is going to be rough.
Mm-hmm.
Opening night. What about the one before that?
Oh, I mean, that's going to be even more rough.
That's going to be a shit show.
Well, that's the practice night, so
I know. Hey,
there you
good
go.
luck to you team members.
They're drinking half off alcohol. It's fine.
That's actually fair. I can't wait for Paris to be announced. We're confident that this is coming.
I mean, yeah.
We're getting a monster.
I said this was the longest lasting rumor of the season. No, this is the longest lasting rumor of the season. It's been like day one. Obviously, monsters we expect to come regardless, but the Paris thing popped up very early in Spec season, so
I'm very excited.
I'm excited. I'm excited for it. I mean, we got your favorite out of all of them, Phantom. I know Hunchback is heavily rumored. Jekyll and Hyde has been rumored a lot recently for it.
I forgot about them, but they're also just like Invisible Man. They take place in London.
Yeah, it is.
But they can travel. Dracula can travel.
That's true.
Honestly, it could be anybody.
He travels a lot, clearly.
It could be anybody.
Yeah.
But it has to be the 2 that are set in Paris. I'm sorry.
Yeah, definitely.
There's no... Scenically, even if you're not excited for these monsters, be excited for the sets, because they're going to be stunning if it's anything like Monsters last year.
Has the potential to be the best sets of the event. If they really focus on... I mean, they're obviously focusing on Paris, but really focusing on the architecture. It could be really, really cool.
A lot of historical, sets being built this year based off the spec map. Like, if we're getting, a Salem house, if we're getting, this, you know what I mean?
Also interesting to note for this is it's in the old Parade Warehouse where Monsters Legends Collide was. So back-to-back years in the same location, possibly.
Good bones.
All right, and that wraps it up for all of our houses on the spec map. So let's get right into the scare zones and pretend we're popping out of the Esoteric Gate like we discussed. If you go to your left in Hollywood, you have Vamp 69.
Hey. I'm sorry. Yeah. Everybody's been making the joke.
Everyone's going to make the joke all season.
They're probably going to
be tired of it before
68
it's announced.
Instead or something just to get it out of the way.
Vamp 60 something.
Yeah. New Year's Eve 68.
There you go.
Mike, isn't this something you've been talking about for a very long time, pretty much? With
Yeah. I had a woods I think we did a create your own event, completely original type event, and I came up with a Woodstock werewolf themed zone, and this was in 2019 2020. And it is something I've brought up a couple of times. I think if this really happens, this is kind of one of my one of my things that I've been wanting, original concepts I've been wanting to see at the event for a very long time, so I'm very excited.
Yeah, I mean, I think the Vamp series is obviously loved by most, and I am one of those. 55 is potentially my all-time favorite scare zone. 85, while did not reach the levels, I did like quite a bit, to be fair. And I think this is a good era to go for next. So I'm excited to see what they pull off here.
Especially if they, in addition to the scare zone, I know it's sort of a separate thing, but it's also it seems like it's connected to this scare zone. If they have like a little show with it, whether it be something on the level of 85's show that they had with the New Year's Eve ball, or maybe even something bigger as this map. I don't know if it implies that, but listing it specifically as show makes it, seems a little bit bigger than the one in 85. That could make things really interesting.
I would say it definitely implies the fact that it's listed separately, because most of these scare zones have like little shows now. That's just kind of how scare zones are designed. To have it specifically put on there like a show, it implies that it's going to be something bigger than what we've seen in the past with, vanity ball type shows and, Zombieland double tap type shows.
Mm-hmm.
This is going to be something bigger.
Yeah, this would definitely imply it's more like something like, we had Academy of Villains at that same location. The Carnage Returns, I guess, is probably more apt to what it would be like, I'd assume, since it's actually using character-driven stories. I'd, again, assume. And it would make sense from what we've heard that there will not be a Lagoon show, that this stage can then go back up. And we've not seen that there since 2017, which we actually barely saw get used in 2017.
Yeah, I didn't get to see it. Hurricane had knocked down already.
Yep. So it would be interesting to see us go back to that location, and I think tying it into the scare zone right next door would make a ton of sense.
Yeah.
Then a hurricane comes and it goes the way of
Jonathan.
No, all right, chill out, Jonathan.
I'm gonna strangle him. No, I'm very excited. I love anything. I love a setting. I love a time period. I love when I just love the potential, because you could have protesters, you could have hippies. I know those kind of one and the same, but you know what I mean. You can have celebrities from Woodstock, like just walking around, kind of like 85.
Definitely,
it'll be fun.
Yeah, I'm sure that's exactly what they'd go for, right?
Yeah. I just hope that we're not getting our hopes up, because hasn't there been like many other vamps rumored before? Or no?
At least one other. I don't know if it got as far as a spec map though.
Oh, that's right.
This rumor in particular seems like it's been around for a little bit longer than just the spec map. And it not only has, HNN's stamp of approval of it being on the map itself, but it also has Legacy stamp of approval, as we talked about before as well. So I think this one, honestly, out of all the zones here, like this one seems like it's been rumored the most.
Yeah,
at least out in the open.
Definitely. Looking at the others, it's definitely the biggest rumor that's been floating around for sure.
Yeah.
There's been a holiday rumor floating around for a while.
That is true, which isn't directly something that we're going to talk about in a minute, but it's close. It ties in, that's for sure.
I could see how that could be turned into that rumor.
But let's carry on here, just past the stage in a Central Park where we have a scare zone simply listed jungle. So, seems like the right setting if you're going to have a jungle, right?
Yeah.
I guess.
I mean, a lot to recover. It'll be dark and jungle.
Is anyone else worried they're going to look like, what was that one scare zone we were laughing at a couple months ago?
Lair of the Banshee.
Yeah. Where they look like just like bad kitties. Like, I'm so, I can't take it seriously.
This is where the Lair of the Banshee rumor came from.
Oh,
this is, watch.
Oh
no.
I will actually walk around the lagoon the other way to get to monsters. I'm going to get my steps in, because boy, I'm sorry. I'm not excited for this. This is my not being excited for dragons equivalent. I think that, it could be scary, but I don't think that we need this.
To be fair, I don't know enough about it to be excited or not excited. I will say the Central Park location has been one of my letdowns the past 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
Even though I did like Scarecrow, to be fair, just not as good as I was hoping and expecting. So I am going to reserve judgment till I learn more, and probably still not get my hopes too high regardless.
You're still better than me.
I know.
Oh my god. I take it back.
I think even though we obviously really don't have any information on this besides Jungle, like you were saying, Duff, the Central Park location is obviously the best location for something that is related to a jungle. And my favorite part about this location last year with Scarecrow was how atmospheric it was. Like it really, just like the music and the lighting and the sets and the actors, like it really transported you somewhere. And I feel like a jungle in this setting, it's very easy if they can get the music right and the character designs right and the lighting. It would be very easy to transport you into this jungle, and it could be very immersive. And if anything, that's the thing. If this ends up, being on the final lineup, that's the thing I'd be most excited for, of how immersive they can make this location.
Yeah, I think that's a great point too. It just, if it's supposed to be a dark and kind of like lighting controlled area, you can work this zone really well. So that is a positive for something like being in a jungle, for sure.
Yeah.
We're trying to find nice things to say about it, guys.
There's not much to say at all, to be fair.
I don't know why I feel so strongly about this one, but I really do.
Watch it be your favorite.
No, I'm sorry.
No, impossible.
No. No.
Okay. That's how you feel.
Sorry. I'm sorry if you're like a jungle person.
I just love jungles.
You pick something. Is it dinosaurs? Is it Back to the Future?
Well, to be fair, the guy who wrote Jurassic Park also wrote a novel called Congo, which is about a jungle and was very good as well. The movie, not so much.
No, the movie.
All right, we're going to keep moving on, and we're just going to catch everything along this path here. In The Simpsons, we have the Megan Horde, which we've kind of, ever since it's lost its house rumor, this has kind of been discussed in some form of show, walk-arounds, and it looks like spec map-wise, it is going to be Horde. That's what they're going for.
Yeah, well, I mean, the casting calls has really well pushed this rumor, right? It's that.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I think that's also we were thinking more show, but
yeah,
it would make. But also, I think we not found out. I think we looked back and it's like, okay, it doesn't specifically say show for that, so it would make sense that it could be for a Horde.
And the Woodstock makes sense where they were looking for vocalists, like that makes sense.
Yeah,
they were looking for actual singers for a Woodstock type show, and then they were looking for separate tumblers for Megan. Where
I am interested to see how much they can do in the streets.
Yeah,
with a Horde. I
don't
theory. Think they'll be letting them flip around.
Probably not. That'd be cool. I'm not gonna lie.
But what are the Hordes normally a part of that they could flip around for? Opening ceremony.
Definitely.
That's true.
Behind the gates. They could be doing a whole little acrobatic number. Also, they could remember, I guess it was the clown chainsaws. They used to be able to like control people and do like that whole circle and that little choreograph moment.
Yeah, I remember.
If they just have like some of the girls like stand in a circle with the chainsaws, they could easily be tumbling in the center.
That would be cool.
I think we could do it. I'm so excited. I think that this makes so much sense.
It's The Simpsons is always kind of like an off area. I know people have complained about how like Megan works and fits the vibe, and I don't think it matters. That's like Simpsons is like that always. The Horde they have in there can match nothing else. It's just some random shit, and it's almost always really fun. So, and I think that will just add to that history of having a lot of fun in Simpsons.
They could put a photo op in there too, like they've had the Chucky one the last few years.
That's true.
It's definitely exciting, and I think it is really smart. No matter what way they implement Megan, it is very smart to have Megan at this year's event, especially with the popularity of the film. Having the ability to like tie her in some way is just so smart for marketing.
Oh, definitely.
I wonder how they'll market this for like the event itself.
I mean, you have to put her on the posters, right? Like she's gonna be
on something.
She's gonna be like
obviously you can't. It's tough to market it like a house. So I feel like there has to be some sort of different approach. But Megan is gonna get marketing.
Oh yeah,
Megan terrorizes HHN or something like that. They'll do like a little video package after the opening weekend of the Horde or something. I think it'll be like heavy on social media.
Oh yeah, I mean that's where Megan's huge, right? So
yeah,
makes sense.
Yeah, especially if they tie it to, like you say, like the opening ceremony and like like they're gonna make a big deal about it. They're definitely gonna, I think, market it.
And they probably want to have Blumhouse at every year right now, because what are we gonna get next year? Five Nights at Freddy's.
5 Nights, yeah.
So like obviously the relationship is great. They don't need to like butter them up, but it probably looks good, and you'll get more approved if you just like keep putting some money into them at the event.
And they just generally seem like they have a good relationship as is right now. So
yeah. Also,
they probably will.
What if Megan? I know the spec map is different in Hollywood, but Megan on the Terror Tram would be really interesting.
I would like that. What if it? Because we'll get to it later, I guess.
Yeah.
What it is, but yes, we'll talk about that. I like that idea. So let's keep moving around. We're gonna go to the, I guess, no-name theater at this point in time, where we have the return of Nightmare Fuel, which is all but confirmed as the Fuel Girls, which, if you didn't know, are the performers that they contract to perform last year, and who was made for in the first place for HHN30. They just couldn't make it over due to visas and the time that it was. But yeah, they in a Instagram story said 60 sleeps. This is a little bit back now, about a week ago, I guess, and tagged Horror Nights. So it would seem this is definitely happening.
So they're coming.
Yeah.
Yep.
I hope it is actually a completely different show this time, and not just like a 30% different show.
I mean, Fuel. Fire.
I'm not super excited about just more fire, and like I enjoyed it the first time because they are very skilled and they're a lot of fun to watch. But 2 years in a row, too much. 3 years in a row, the same stuff. I don't know.
If they pull that like fucking bed out,
it really sort of fit the vibe for 30, because 30 was very red and it felt sort of more serious.
Red.
It was very red. So like that was the thing.
All right, Taylor Swift, calm down.
What was HHN30's vibe?
Red.
But it was very, somewhat serious, the metal music and stuff like that. Serious. So like Nightmare Fuel, sort of fit in with that event. It meshed with it. 31, it kind of felt weirder, especially with the Halloween theme. And then it's like, oh, this show we have a bunch of fire, and also it was practically the same show. So I don't know. I'm not really excited for it coming back. I really hope they do something completely different. But with the lack of a full-on Lagoon show, I'm sure if the Vamp show ends up being true, it's going to be really fun. But I don't know how big that's actually going to end up being. So I don't know. I feel like we're going to once again lean in on too much seriousness in the shows compared to like a lean on comedy, which I don't love.
I mean, the Vamp show sounds like it could definitely have some comedy to it.
Oh, for sure. I just don't think it's going to be as big as something as like...
No.
Yeah, as even Ghoulish was. And even when Ghoulish was there, I still thought Nightmare Fuel was, once again, like the main focus of the shows was the serious part. That had the big whole, stage to it. And I still think the main show should be somewhat comedy focused, because during your day you are, little bit, you're not stressed out, but you're on edge the whole day. So having a minute to relax is nice, not a minute to get burned by fire. It's
just it's so hard to watch. It's so hot.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't care how talented they are. Even if it's the greatest show ever, I'll only be able to watch it a few times.
No,
just because it, especially like when it's still September, like it is unbearable in there.
Yeah, it really
is. It's a lot of fire.
Yeah.
For sure.
The next show is going to be called Even More Fire.
All right, no. Moving on. We're going to head down to Diagon Alley, where something gets brought up every year, And people always say, no, J.K. Rowling would never allow it. And then insiders tell us every year, no, it can happen. They've planned it multiple times and just didn't end up doing it. And that's Death Eaters, who are now actually on the Spec map. And we saw them in Hollywood last year. And I think we thought it was pretty cool, right? I didn't love the operations behind it. It was kind of like a little tunnel they sent you down.
A green tunnel.
Yeah. But the Death Eaters themselves were a really cool experience.
And they were scary. Like, I know they have one in Islands of Adventure, you know, for their, they have a little horror-esque show they have, and the Death Eaters walk around, but they don't really try to scare people. But in Hollywood, once, you know, becomes HHN, all of a sudden, though, Death Eaters like, no, we're scare actors. We're going to scare you. And I got like my, you know, like they got me. Like, they got me a lot. So to have Death Eaters like in Diagon Alley, if they're able to be like the ones in Hollywood and scare, like that can be a really fun experience walking through Diagon Alley and having that that experience, especially like some of them hide in like Nocturne Alley too. Oh god.
I mean, if they do the whole you're gonna walk down a tunnel thing, I could see them basically shoving you through Nocturne Alley and that being what it is.
That'd be so cool.
I'd be okay with that.
But it would fit a lot better than so in Hollywood they stuck you right next to where like that path behind Ollivanders and the shops next to it, that skinny path along the wall, that was it. That's where you walked. And that wasn't the best space for it, even though it was really cool. I think Nocturne Alley, if you did do it the same way, much better space for it.
For sure. And it gives crowds a reason, you know, once again, with the lack of a Lagoon show that eats up a lot of people. Vamp will Vamp will eat up people, but it's not going to be as much space as that humongous Lagoon show plot. But if you have Diagon Alley and all of a sudden people have an incentive to go in there, because usually when you go in there, it's sort of like a ghost town. But when all of a sudden, when all these people start going in to see the Death Eaters, hopefully the crowds in the park itself will feel a little bit more manageable. Depending on how big of a draw the Death Eaters really end up being and how much they're, you know, marketed and promoted and whatnot.
I know a lot of people are sad that their Quiet Place might go because of this, but I'm happy. I never spent time in there, so during HHN at least. During HHN. I did it occasionally to grab like a drink or something because shorter line. If it was open, because sometimes they're not even open to have any kind of food or drink. But I didn't really use it as a spot. I'm sorry if you really did need like a decompression spot. It was great, but that might be gone this year.
Yeah, it was a great place to hide from the rain.
That is true.
But now, never mind.
But let's keep trucking along down to San Francisco, where we have, again, this is the horns that you can see, but confirmed by Horror Night Nightmares to represent Krampus. And as Mike mentioned earlier, there was a rumored Holidays in Hell zone coming to Orlando this year. And this, well, not exactly Holidays in Hell, is a holiday-based thing. And he's from hell, kind of ish. So, Krampus, Scare Zone. What do you think?
Cool.
Yeah, I mean, Krampus has been rumored in one way, or I mean, wasn't early on. It was rumored to be a house. So
an original take on it.
Yeah, it was rumored to be original. Yeah, like a Krampus original. That was like on the very first Spec map this season.
You're right.
Yeah.
So I think it's fun that we're still potentially getting that, but now as a Scare Zone.
And I think my thoughts are exactly the same as it was for the potential house, is that if it's the IP, if it's an original take, I'm stoked. I'm ready for it.
I don't think it'll be the IP. Right?
No, I doubt it would be. But
the timing, unless there's some sequel we don't know about or something, but I doubt.
No, I think it's interesting because we had that really heavy like urban legend rumor speculation early on in the season. And the map still is kind of heavy on that. If it's a Bigfoot type of a house or a Yeti type of a house, Salem, I don't know about dragons, but this could also tie into it. Like, I just think that's really interesting. Devil Went Down to Georgia could kind of be an urban legend.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it is an urban legend.
Oh, yeah, actually, it's based in... Yeah, so I think it's still interesting that that's kind of where we're leaning, even if that's not a theme that they're actually even trying to do. They are, if this is true.
It seems, I mean, with all the promotion, it seems like it is. I mean, granted, the legend of HHN could just be never go alone. That's the legend. Never
Oh
do,
yeah, I
never
forgot
go.
about the legend.
But like, if this actually, in some way is the promotion of it, all of this is based on legends, then they're doing a pretty damn good job if this map ends up being true, because almost everything fits, besides the IPs, obviously, which is such a nice thing to think about. I mean, even all the actual zones here are original and sort of tie into the theme somewhat as well, which is really cool. My favorite thing about 31 was how everything, particularly kind of just the zones, connected to the theme and really made the event feel whole. And if this map ends up being accurate, I feel like that might carry over to this year as well.
Yeah, and even further so. So let's see. It's looking positive from the spec map. Let's hope they also market it and utilize it that way.
Mm-hmm. That's one of the most important parts.
And not just never go alone.
Oh.
All right, let's not talk about that again and take the trek down to New York, where we have the Zodiac Scare Zone. I don't know shit about Zodiac.
I was gonna say this is the one that I just don't have any expectations for because I don't know anything about.
I got you guys.
I
think it. Well, I mean, you said it to me the other day that this has come up multiple years now in a row. This rumor, which if it doesn't happen, that sucks, because I think that if they approach this like they did the 7 zone, like the 7 deadly sins, and give each zodiac, it doesn't have to be a stage, but just some kind of a like big representation and maybe like a minion kind of a representation like that. I think it could be really cool with stages involved. Maybe they rotate throughout them. New York is a really big space. I don't know how they would lean into that though. If we're going to use the setting of New York, it would probably have to be like a glamorized version of maybe it's like the hot zone. That'd be kind of cool. Kind of like, I guess, 7 was that before they like turned into like their ugly versions throughout the night. I didn't get to experience it, but from what I saw,
their ugly versions.
Ugly versions. But you know what I mean? Like they're more dramatized versions of whatever they were.
You are speaking my language. As I mentioned earlier, Vamp 69 would be a sequel of Vamp 55, which potentially my favorite scares of all time. That is in competition with what you said maybe this could be like, is 7.
Oh.
So the vibe of 2 of my favorite scare zones ever coming back in the same year. I'm down for it. I'm down for it.
Be the photo zone, because everybody has a zodiac sign and most people know their zodiac sign. Some people are really into it. I'm not one of those people, but I know, your sun, your rise, all that shit. But like people could want to take, hey, look, that's an Aries. I'm an Aries. Let's take a selfie. And like, there's your photo zone right there.
You gotta have I have to admit, Jess, I didn't know Zodiacs had like a horror, scary element to it. I know I've heard of the Zodiac Killer, but I thought that was something totally separate. I didn't know that like actual Zodiacs had like. I know the 7 deadly sins are kind of sometimes tied into that, but yeah, I didn't realize that there was like a scary, spooky Zodiac thing. I know like tarot cards and stuff like have kind of tie in, but
I don't know if it's horror, or I don't even know if it's horror adjacent, but I know that like every zodiac sign ties into like a god or a goddess from either Roman or Greek. I'm not sure. Other people are way more educated on this shit, but like you could lean into like the attributes and the tropes of each zodiac sign. So like Aries are really hard-headed, so how could you lean into that and make it like horror adjacent or something like that? Like or even into like the ram side of it, so like maybe more the animal side, which it's funny that I don't like the jungle idea, but I like this idea. But I think if they like approach it kind of like avant-garde couture kind of a thing, I'm not asking for like a vanity ball, but like just like beautiful sculptures in the faces and the outfits, like stuff like that.
That would be really cool. I'm excited to see, because I have no clue on this one, what this one looks like. Because
yeah, I could visualize it in so many different ways.
Yeah.
That but I'm gonna go with your whole 7 thing and kind of see it that way.
I hope so.
Quick question: are these the actual like zodiac signs? Because I don't really recognize them.
So I know the first one is Aries. I know Gemini's up there.
Is Gemini by any chance the sideways 69? Because if it is,
No, that's Cancer, isn't it?
Ah,
Sideways 69 is Cancer.
I'm pretty sure that's Cancer.
Damn
the
it.
twins. See, again, this is where I'm not as educated as other people.
The thing is, because I know I know the thing is twins for Gemini, and I was like, that looks like it could be
Libra
some
up there.
representation.
Yeah, no, yeah.
69.
The Cancer is the sideways 69. Leo is the little sperm looking one.
Mm-hmm.
Taurus is the one that looks like a horn,
I think they go in order. So the first one is Aries. I know that. I think that they might go in order of the signs.
Oh,
like by month, you know.
Now that I know I'm not the size of age 69, I really don't care, to be honest.
Oh
so
my
we're just
Aries is the one that looks like a whale blowhole.
That's one way to look at it. I was
like
gonna say
a what?
It looked
you know, like
gynecological to me.
The
but
nipple?
that's
okay, cervix.
No,
okay,
not
I
the
see
nipple.
that.
It looks like a uterus.
Wait,
like a cervix?
The Aries. It's the first one.
Oh no,
it's
yeah,
the ram.
okay. I see.
I see.
No,
I just see
got
whale.
it.
I just
Remember
see like
when
a fountain, like whale blow.
No, but Mike, I see where you can see that. But remember when I said the supervision was back? I take it all back. There's no supervision here.
Oh, and there's like what looks like a tongue coming out of the mouth next to it, and then there's the 60. Yeah, there's. Oh man.
Where do you see a tongue coming out of a mouth?
What's going on?
All right,
Jonathan, I forgot you were here. I'm sorry, buddy.
Let's keep walking.
Just a horde is left, right?
Yeah, we're gonna wrap really far because we're gonna cut straight through Production Central with no scare zone listed into the front of the park where we have the Carnival of Oddities Horde.
Thanks, Minions.
Yeah. Do we want to talk about that rumor? I
feel like that has to be true.
It makes sense. It's the first couple months of this land being open, I could see them not wanting to shove props in its face.
Mm-hmm.
It's already so loud.
I don't think that'll last forever, but while it's new, I don't think they want to put props there.
Yeah, I get it.
Especially when people are coming I can't wait to see Minion Land. It just opened, and they see just a bunch of I don't know.
Yeah.
Dead. Then I won't have them outside, but just dead bodies next to the Minion.
What does this have to do with Minion? People during the day are just yeah.
What
did the Minions do? Oh my god!
Why are these trusses here?
What happens in Minions Land?
Yeah.
But about the Carnival of Oddities Horde, my concerns about the potential Oddfellows house are amplified here because how can you not be super carnival-esque with just characters?
Yeah.
And that is so every other haunt, carnival, carny characters and shit walking around with chainsaws, and it's just, no.
It's SeaWorld San
Do
Diego.
you need a second roaming horde?
If they're roaming,
people keep saying roaming. They don't necessarily have to be roaming. They could be stuck to their location.
Yeah.
I feel for this one, right in the front, you want them stuck. Because
I don't want them stuck, but
you know what I mean. In terms of having them right in the front, right when you enter the park, because you're not gonna have, rumors. You're not gonna have anything in Minions Land. So you're gonna look and see nothing. You want something HHN to start off your night before having to walk through Minions and seeing nothing until you finally get to the houses. So I think it makes sense that they sort of had a permanent sort of roaming location in that general area.
Yeah,
I think this makes sense if Oddfellow is more than just a house and it takes an icon type element. I think you have to have something to tie it in that's in the streets, and I think that makes sense. But if Oddfellow is not the icon, just let Megan do that. Let the roaming Megan horde, when the park first opens, let them sit in this area and then move around the park. You don't need it unless Oddfellow is the icon. Then it makes sense that this is coming.
Yeah, I think this kind of adds credence to that, doesn't it?
It does. I think it only makes sense if there is an icon element or the Carnival of the Bizarre type of like throwback.
Yeah, definitely. Any last thoughts on the Orlando spec map before we move on to Hollywood?
Nope. Overall, if this ends up being true, this looks like I think a pretty damn good lineup.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that took us a long time. We have
Okay.
two other events to cover.
Oh Jesus!
Well, let's
Hollywood
we
and
can
Japan.
cover Hollywood pretty quick because a lot of
Maybe
it
we save
is the
Japan for
same.
another show. We'll see.
We'll see. I think we'll get to Hollywood quick because
yeah.
Here, let's just run through Stranger Things 4, The Last of Us, The Owl Again, which we've talked about previously. La Lechuza is kind of the rumor there. Evil Dead Rise, that's the big difference. The Exorcist, Holidays in Hell, Terror Tram Celebrities, still a thing hanging on there. Universal Monsters Paris, Chucky, and a Megan roaming horde.
Okay, so this one definitely says roaming.
Yes, and all their scare zones are unknown. Their show is just show and Death Eaters once again in Potter.
So the only two, I mean, actually, there's three technical new things: is Believer being changed to Original Exorcist, Evil Dead Rise, and the Megan Horde.
So I think what we can talk about really is big one, the big IP change here, Evil Dead Rise, especially since it is very likely going to be the same house we saw last year with the IP overlay back. Which, if you weren't aware, Universal Horror Hotel was basically just a de-skinned and reskinned version of Evil Dead Rise. You can see it if you watch the movie and watch a walkthrough of the house. It is extremely obvious. And it looks like they're probably, since it's in the same location as well on the spec map, they're probably just going to basically have the house we saw last year, but with the actual IP this time.
Yeah, just add the characters.
Yep.
I don't want this. Like, I really don't want this.
No.
I know we watched the movie, and the movie was actually pretty good. I really enjoyed it. But, I mean, like you said, the sets in Horror Hotel were kind of just a changed version of the sets of Evil Dead Rise. So, practically, we kind of already saw the house, at least its base form, before it obviously gets the IP infused. And I really don't need to see it again, even if it has the characters from Evil Dead Rise and has some more scenes and lines and turns it more IP. It's essentially, if they do what we think they're gonna do, gonna be the same house. And I thought it was cool that Horror Hotel was able, because of its weird situation, was able to tell a really cool, interesting story with the setting that they had and with everything they could do. I thought the story was the most interesting part of it. And when you just turn it into, well, now the story is the movie Evil Dead Rise, it becomes a lot less interesting to me.
And I will say, it was a good house. I'm sure this will be a good house, but it's a house we basically have seen with some changes.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. It's like, I mean, the Horror Hotel was a standout house. My main concern is I don't want this to get nightmare fueled, essentially, where it affects the reputation of Horror Hotel just because we get it back a second year, but in a little bit of different changes, and everyone, then looking, when we talk about it, because that first year, Nightmare Fuel had, had good, good talk, and everyone liked that. It was the fact that we basically got it back the second year. That's when people started to change their opinions, and I don't want that to happen to Horror Hotel.
I will say, I'm definitely not going to look at it that way. I'm going to look at it as HHN, you made a bad choice to do that. I understand it's the smart choice. It's the smart choice. I get it. Financially, it makes sense. Get the IP into it. Great. It makes sense on that front. But from an experience as a guest, I will say in Hollywood, they're more used to that, even more so, where you literally get the same exact house. So at least this won't be the same exact house, technically. But it's kind of a bummer. And I will hold on to my Horror Hotel memories fondly and just hope that this house is good enough that I really won't care.
Mm-hmm.
I don't feel as negatively as you guys do about this. I think that it's funny that The Exorcist is coming back for what, a third time, and you
Ugh.
guys are bothered about Evil Dead Rise.
I'm
Well,
bothered by
hey,
both.
No. Let
whoa.
me finish. Let me finish. Y'all can speak your piece on The Exorcist. I know you're not excited about that either.
Peace.
But
I think that's
okay,
what I'm
it's
gonna
my
speak.
turn. I let y'all speak. I think that just the moments in Evil Dead Rise are going to make for great scenes to walk through a house, and we all said that after the movie was done.
Mm-hmm.
That I think that, you know, even if the setting is the same and the sets were good, that I can forgive it enough that it's a repeat. Like, more or less. I know it's not. I can forgive that, especially if we're gonna get, like, I guess, spoiler alert if you haven't seen the movie from a couple months ago, the cheese grater scene, you know, the big like final boss, I guess, quote unquote, at the end, the wood chipper, like shit like that. Like, I'm excited to see how they interpret that with what they already have.
Yeah, definitely.
I appreciate your outlook.
Okay, well,
I mean, this is what we were supposed to get.
right.
Like, so when you think it like that like, Horror Hotel was their pivot, where we're now finally getting what we were supposed to see, and I think it'll be good.
Which,
I agree with you.
To your point, is exactly what happened with Nightmare Fuel. They redid it because they could finally do what they originally intended to do.
Yeah.
Well, that's different.
Is it though?
Yeah, because I feel like Nightmare Fuel, it's not a house going from an original to an IP. It's the show where they just removed the Fuel Girls and then they added them back the next year.
Isn't the Fuel Girls basically the IP?
I don't know,
Yeah,
because the
definitely.
characters in Horror Hotel were completely different from the characters in Evil Dead Rise.
That is true.
And I feel like the characters make the story, not just the setting.
Was the story, because I didn't see Nightmare Fuel the first time, but was the story was
Was the
essentially the
same.
same story?
It was the same story.
To be fair, I was just making a joke. We don't
I know.
actually need to argue about that point.
Well, now I'm going to defend Evil Dead Rise.
Yeah, go ahead. Hey, listen, I love the film.
I know you did.
I am
I was
going
there.
I am going to hold out hope that I can still fully enjoy it as a house.
I'm completely expecting that the minute let's say it is what we think and it's just the same layout, but turn into an IP.
IP-defied.
I don't know what that was, and I tried to stop it, but it was too late. But the minute we walk into the bathroom and the Evil Dead Rise lady, I forgot her name,
Maggot mommy.
Exactly, the maggot person. Maggot person.
I made Jonathan uncomfortable.
The animatronic comes out of the bathtub the same way as that other person did.
Over it.
I'm gonna lose it, and I'm gonna be out the entire house. I'm gonna be like, I can't. This is too similar. Like,
one thing I will say, it's coming, so please don't lose it. You don't need to lose it. You know it's coming. Just brace yourself for it.
I can brace myself for it all I want. The minute it happens, I'm gonna start laughing hysterically because
are you gonna laugh, or am I gonna? Are you gonna make that angry noise you sometimes do, where you're like,
maybe
I did it wrong, but
yeah, a little bit wrong, but maybe a bit of both. It might be like part of me goes a little like, oh look, isn't that funny? It's the same thing I saw, and then just get really mad the more I think about that. So yeah, I'm not looking forward to this at all. I'm not. It's probably, besides the elephant in the room that I guess we're going to talk about next, definitely out of all of these, my least anticipated.
All right, let's get to it. The Exorcist.
Boo.
If it is the original Exorcist, it would be the third time since 2016 that we have the same exact film. And listen, I think Hollywood really did the most you can do with The Exorcist. I think because of its repetitiveness that they took, especially with Hollywood and their black walls, they utilized them well and made them work and made it. They got the scares out of it for sure. They did. I don't need to see it again. I do not. And I've only seen it once in Hollywood. Imagine being a Hollywood local and this would be your third time in such a short amount of time. No, thank you. No, thank you. Goodbye.
They better discount my frequent fear pass if they're going to do the same house every 2 years.
Frequent fear pass?
Or whatever, you know what I mean.
Are you moving there?
No, you know what I mean, but like if I live there, I'm saying. You said the locals.
Yeah.
It's true.
Oh God,
I've never seen it, and I don't care to see it.
You know what it is? It's bedroom black wall.
No, I mean I haven't seen the
wall.
house. I've seen the movie. Like I just haven't. I have never experienced the Exorcist house on either coast.
No, I'm saying you can just envision it in your head. Like you don't even need
watch
to go
the walkthroughs. It's the priest. It's the room. It's the stairs.
Exactly.
It's the Reagan. It's the doll. It's the actor. Like.
But don't forget, in Orlando, smells like puke to the most disgusting level possible.
No, thank you.
It's, as someone who comes out and always says, I'm not bothered by any of the smells in any of the houses, I think they add to it. That one was cranked to like a 200 on the smell level. And it smelled like literal puke was surrounding you. No. You were definitely in like a sewage flow of puke.
Gross.
You know what though? Your theory, Duff, that maybe this, and I know we're all kind of like, maybe this one isn't particularly correct out of all the IPs. I feel like it being on the Hollywood map, even though Hollywood, they like to they repeat stuff all the time. I could be giving Hollywood a lot of credit, but they just did this. Like, they just did this in 2021. I know they repeat things. I don't know how well, like, the reception would be at all if they said we're doing The Exorcist again this recently. Like Orlando is a different story because we haven't had it for a while and whatever. But Hollywood, I don't think they get away with a lot of stuff. I don't know if they'd be able to get away with this.
Yeah,
that's so recent.
That is pretty crazy. It was a repeat 2 years ago. A repeat already, and it was only 2 years ago. No. I'm gonna say just no. And it might be wishful thinking, but no, we are not getting The Exorcist, the original film. Not happening. Thank you. Case closed.
I like
Goodbye.
that. No. I like that theory.
I refuse to hear it. All right, let's talk about something more fun. Yay, Terror Tram celebrities.
Which was on the past couple of maps, I think.
Yes.
Yeah.
At least the second one.
I just want to come back to it because of Mike's point that he brought up. Or was it Mike? You brought it up, right? Where Megan on
No,
it?
I think that was Jess, wasn't it?
That was me.
Jess. Hi, Jess.
Hi, I'm back.
Megan on the Terror Tram. I like it.
I think that'd be cool. Yeah.
Megan killing celebrities and shit, maybe, you know?
Oh, yeah. that's really cool. Actually, yeah. Well, we'll see. I have nothing more to say about that.
Yeah. Is there anything else we want to discuss on this Hollywood map before we move on?
Where do we think? Oh, actually, no. It does say where the Megan roaming whore is going to be. Where is that? Like,
let's see. It is just outside of the backside of what the hell is that place called? Potter.
Okay, so like, is that like to the mazes back there? Like that little walkway?
Yes, correct.
Okay, I could see that. That's a fun little walkway for them to be.
Yeah, it works.
Yeah, other than that, looks,
I believe we have. Yeah, I believe we have some construction updates and Joan Murdy news as well before we leave Hollywood. Correct?
Yeah, we can just jump right into that first before we get to the Japan announcements. Absolutely.
Let's do it.
Duff, you actually visited the park recently, or for HHN or Universal Studios Orlando. Do you want to talk about the construction updates you saw?
Yeah. So I mean, it's just lighting rigs right now, really, that you can see mainly throughout Central Park. You also have them outside of London as well. Yeah, it's cool to see them popping up. Of course, it means construction season is really starting to kick in. This is about the same time that they popped up last year, and I would like to point out we are about a week away from the point where props started to go out in Graveyard last year. So we could be very close to seeing props go out in scare zones. So construction season has really kicked into high gear. Well, it is. Yes. I don't know about high gear, but it has started officially.
It's very exciting. I mean, it's only HHN fans, I guess theme park fans in general, who will get excited by just lighting rigs popping up. It's like, oh, here we go, it's time. And every other guest like, what is that? I don't care what that is. But we always get really excited about little things like this.
And we have a TikTok. Go check out our TikTok. We have a TikTok about it.
Yes, TikTok and hopefully it'll be on Instagram tomorrow as well. So TikTok, Instagram, both of those things. Going to be a nice video updating that. And I'm sure we're going to have lots of more construction updates there in the future as well.
And then a construction update I did not see because it is in Hollywood. As we have seen before as well. If you're on the tram tour, you can see in a Soundstage 15, they do have those doors open. And it looks a lot more fleshed out now. And a lot of people are pointing out that it could be Max's trailer, which I think would make a lot of sense for a place to start, or like early on, you know?
It's a great spot.
It's right across the street from Eddie's uncle's RV.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Just would like to, and that
something very big happens there.
Yeah, I gotta rewatch season 4 now.
Yeah, it's on my list.
Yeah, I forgot about that. I will rewatch. I will rewatch. It is like 87 hours worth of content.
Yeah, it's essentially 2 seasons put together as one. So.
Yeah.
I might skip around and be like, I'm just going to watch the parts that are probably going to be in the house. Just
Fair. Although once I start watching, I'm going to get hooked again. So I know what'll happen.
If this is true, this would be, because the way Soundstage 15 is laid out, like with this opening, this is basically would be the facade of the house or like around there. So if this, ends up being what we think it is, this would be, I mean, even if it's any structure, this would be Hollywood's first Stranger Things house with a facade. If this location even ends up being Stranger Things.
That's true. That would be nice.
It would. It wouldn't just be a sign saying Stranger Things, come on in. It didn't say that. It didn't say the second part. It did say Stranger Things.
No, it did in small font. You're wrong.
You're right.
That is all we have for construction across the events right now. But we did also, as Mike mentioned, have some news from John Murdy. What is he saying, Jonathan?
He's saying a lot of stuff. We're since we took off last week, we have a little bit more stuff. You might have heard it or seen it on Twitter before, but I just want to mention it because a lot of the stuff is really interesting. First one was just a tweet John Murdy said on Twitter, and basically he said, "Watch video last night of something being installed / tested out in our Chucky house," which would be the Hollywood's Chucky house. Crazy science project. We weren't sure if it was going to work or not, but worth taking the risk. It's going to work. Not going to tell you what it is. You'll just have to see for yourselves. That's very interesting, especially because I know in the past he's even talked about Chucky being probably the most, I don't remember his exact word, but has the most like special effects or technically advanced house of the year. So I'm really interested of like what he's referring to here, because there's a lot of scenes in both seasons that he could be talking about.
Interesting.
It's definitely interesting.
Definitely intrigued.
There's not much to talk about what we think it is, but I'm sure we're going to find out. And the next thing is something really quick, is at the Hudson Gate location, which is where currently on the spec map Evil Dead Rise is rumored to be. He says it will be an IP, and it won't have a traditional facade. So that once again leans into the theory that it is, in fact, Evil Dead Rise. Because if you guys remember, Horror Hotel also didn't really have a facade. It had a sort of elevator, and it showed someone sort of dangling from it. And actually it was a really cool effect, but it wasn't really a normal facade. So maybe we'll have something similar with whatever actually ends up being in there.
Yeah. And this next one I think is pretty fun because I like this change that they made last year. He stated that the opening ceremony will happen multiple times a night. And I can say I like that from a perspective of being in Orlando, where it is once a night and continues to be, because I don't see it most years because I'm not going to wait outside that long to see it.
Yeah.
Simple as. I'm either going to come in late or I'm going to be at Stay and Scream. So I think having it so you don't have to be there for that one time where you're probably behind hundreds of people is a much better way to do it. At least, for someone who just spoiled, I'll be in Stay and Scream. Sorry. I live right down the road. I don't have to show up at the beginning anyways. Stuff like that. But from a personal perspective, I love that.
It was so funny because the one night I was able to like be in the correct spot for the opening ceremony. It was like the first hurricane day where they didn't even open. They didn't have staying screen wasn't an option. So I'm like, okay, I guess I'm doing it this way for the first time. And I was in the front. And I'm like, all right, here we go. And then I realized, wait a minute, it's a hurricane day, and they just didn't do it. And I'm like, well, that was my one chance of the year. Never seeing it again. So having it happen multiple times in Hollywood is a nice benefit.
So sad.
It was a sad moment. I was so sad. But another thing we can talk about here in regards to The Last of Us house is that he said, not surprisingly, but the bloater, which is the highest stage of the infected that we talked about on last week's episode. If you guys want more information on the stages of infected of the Last of Us game, is super complicated. Has to be hooked up to an air compressor with a quick connect to cool the performer down.
Yeah, not surprising, because this is going to be a big ass bitch, and it's going to be hot, and it will take a lot of physical effort to be this scare actor.
Mm-hmm. It does, give me hope though that they are going to do it correctly, because needing, an air compressor, like, okay, they really are going to try to make it, like the relative size of what a bloater is in the game, which is really exciting.
I'm just a little worried because remember how long it took just the finale guy in Deadman's to get loaded in and out during cast change?
Mm-hmm.
If this guy, if this is what Murdy's describing, will we see bloaters, or will they be still getting into their costume during cast change?
They will have 10-minute sets, because 40 minutes of the set will be them trying to get in and out.
Yeah.
I hope this isn't like an opening day, like, we tried.
Now here's the bloater puppets we've had in the back the whole time. Enjoy.
Because this is an IP, I really think they're gonna like this is gonna be like, it would be funny like if we try, but I really do think they're gonna do everything they can to make this
work.
They'll
figure it out.
Yeah, it's not like an original they can kind of just like, doesn't matter. This one, I'm sure IP holders are kind of watching, like, you better have that thing we all work together on. It's like, okay, especially with people like Naughty Dog that seem to be really involved with both houses on both coasts.
John Murray's next point, though, is the very opposite of working with IP holders, because very original. He says, the makeup application for the lead character we're shooting for Terror Tram today is going to take close to 3 hours to apply. Totally my fault. I created him. There's another female character for a house we're shooting that's 2 hours to apply. God, I love practical makeup. Don't we all, John Murdy? Don't we all? And also pointed out the second girl that was referenced is an original character in a non-original house. Huh.
Okay.
I will say, both of these sound like they could be the very aforementioned, like months ago, blogger, podcaster, whatever it may be, who gets killed.
Mm-hmm.
They do, right?
That this sounds like either one or both could be the example that. And I think we're saying an original character in a non-original house, Chucky, or the Terror Tram. Yeah. Both great fits for that. I could see it being on screen for the Terror Tram. I could definitely see it being in Chucky as well.
Chucky would be the only thing that fits, in my opinion, to have an original character in an IP house. Chucky,
which
you
is
could throw Chucky in.
Positive. It seems like they're going to make this shit super meta and super Chucky-esque, so I'm excited for that.
Which I know we've talked about, before, like, if it's the show and it could be interesting, but what if they do take this weird route of like, it is the show, but there are sections in the house or the way the house is told, or whatever, that like this is very meta and very silly. I feel like if they lean in on that, like this is kind of implying a little bit, that could make for a really interesting IP, because I don't think it's been a long time since an IP like referenced it was at HHN, right? That it knew it was a house. Like I remember the first Saw did that, but I don't remember like any other houses since that like reference they were at Halloween Horror Nights.
Yeah, I mean, no, IPs, that's not common at all.
Mm.
So it's, I love to see it. Love to see it.
If you're gonna take Chucky, that's a great route to take him, I think. But
go ahead.
oh yeah, sorry, I'll just go for it. There will be a new house location this year, and that will house an IP. So that's exciting because on the map itself, it didn't have a water world,
No
right?
water world, and there's been no visible work at water world either. So it would seem very likely that water world is moving elsewhere.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't like that walk over there. It just wasn't my favorite. It's not long. It felt weird. It felt out of place last year. I don't know how to describe it.
It was always
really
super
well.
bottleneck too.
Yeah, it just.
It was hard to tell, at least in standby, how long the line was, because I was always like, how, because the way the stage was sort of rounded, it's kind of like
wraps around, so you can't see anything going on beyond you.
So when I went, I had Express, but we only had one time Express, so we kind of had to focus on our timing, and we're kind of like, we're in this line, we're like, how long are we willing to stay here until it's not worth it anymore, and it was really hard to tell with this one. So I'm okay with them choosing another location instead of the Waterworld place, because I don't even necessarily think the Waterworld location for a house was even that exciting. Like the only two houses I've seen were Halloween 4 and Blumhouse, which they both were okay, and I did like Halloween 4 a lot more, than I usually do for Halloween House. But nothing about the setting itself or the way Waterworld was set up let me think, man, this location is great. So
yeah,
I'm okay with this going away.
Super lend itself well to a house. They made it work, but it wasn't anything special as a location.
Mm-hmm.
And then the final bit we have from John Murdy: there is an animated prop that is part of a facade this year. Huh.
Now, the first thing that I think goes to a lot of people's heads is, oh, Chucky, right? Chucky is known for having some interactive element or something like that, and that makes a lot of sense. But also last year, you could technically say the one random seagull in
Jonathan,
Legends.
I knew you were gonna fucking say that.
But it's true, because I think he even referenced it, that like, oh yeah, our seagull's animated prop that we have in Legends Collide. So it could be something just really small that can just be in front of any house, and if as long as it's an animated prop, that could be what he's referring to.
What if the facade is Notre Dame and the bells are swinging?
I mean, that would be amazing.
That'd be fun, actually.
Go inside and Quasimodo is doing the whole 29 gig where he's flying.
That would be absolutely
stunning. I would collapse. You guys would just have to drag me through the rest of the house. I hope you're prepared. There's no... That's it.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. Yep.
I'm just gonna make noise.
Yeah. That is all for John Murdy, though. But we do have another insider, Legacy, who dropped some pretty big, I don't want to say news, but a rumor stating that an announcement is planned for this Thursday. That'll be the 13th of July. And if we're looking at it probably being like a bi-coastal announcement, you only have a couple IPs to choose from. You'd assume it's an IP, the way they've been doing things the past several years, right? At this stage.
Mm-hmm.
So you got Exorcist. Is that big enough? I don't know. Universal Monsters, that could definitely fit as well for this time frame. And Stranger Things could also really fit for this time frame.
I'm thinking, like, if I was to look at these three and sort of like try to make somewhat of an educated guess, I think Exorcist doesn't really make any sense right now.
Yeah,
like,
agreed.
I don't think it's like,
that's
it's not
bundled with no. Bye.
Exactly. So I think if it's going to be either one, it's either going to be Monsters or Stranger Things. I think Exorcist is kind of off the table right now. I feel like they wait a little bit longer for that one.
When did we get Frequent Fears last year? It was like July 20 something, right?
The other point I was going to bring up, mid to late July is always when we get Frequent Fear passes and multi-night tickets. And that is always paired with an announcement for the most part.
And normally a pretty big one. It's normally a bigger IP.
Yes, which one of those is definitely a bigger IP.
Yeah.
Obviously, The Exorcist.
The Exorcist. The Exorcist and Frequent Fear Passes. Book it.
It's actually the seagull from Monsters is getting its own sequel house. Only in Florida.
Only in Florida.
Only in Florida.
But I mean, Stranger Things and Frequent Fear Passes would be an epic 1-2 punch. I remember last year it was Weekend and Frequent Fear Passes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I mean, it makes sense once again to get your headliner to also have the Frequent Fear Passes with it, and boom, that's a great announcement day, and everyone's happy, and no one yells about announcements for a week, and then everyone yells again.
I will be at Universal on Thursday. Maybe we'll go live if we do get an announcement in March or something.
Yeah, I like it. We should.
I can watch live. I can be like, "Oh, look!"
Yep. All right. A couple things left. I think. What do you guys? Do we hold on to Japan for next week because we actually have a lot of detail on it?
Yeah, we can hold on. I feel like that one isn't super time sensitive. We can talk about it next week, and it could all be good.
But we will run through some local Central Florida haunts. Sir Henry's had a trail announcement called Moonlight Massacre. Quickly, its description: deep in the heart of Boggy Meadow, a creaky, blood-stained old house stands as a grim reminder of a sheep farmer named Thomas. Oh, Thomas, who was lured into a sinister pact with Beatrice Witch.
What a name.
That's the best witch name I've ever heard.
What's a hag name?
His family was destroyed. Do you dare enter? I will enter. Yes, I absolutely will. Because I will be at Sir Henry's as always.
Yeah.
And then if we go over to Hollow Scream Orlando, they announced a returning house. Our favorite moaning tents shall be returning from Blood Beckoning.
I hope it's now with 50% more tents. Just really immerse us in the moaning tent situation.
I've never experienced it before, and I don't feel like I'm prepared with the way you guys talk about it.
It's just, why were we in the subway or the sewers, and why were the tents moaning? Like,
well, we know why they were moaning.
I know why they were moaning. I went to public school.
Oh god!
Yay! Is this gonna be Itchy or Scratchy's house? I'm sorry. What are their names?
Scratchy. All right. Okay. So all we have left is a voicemail. Yes. Jess, do you have it loaded up?
I do.
Awesome.
I absolutely do.
Hello, HHN365. My name is Xander. I just had a couple questions. Could you guys maybe go in more detail on Dr. Oddfellow and kind of the backstory to that? And then also, could you guys please talk about the Universal Monsters in Paris rumored house and just some of the details that goes into that, like the characters that would be involved? Thank you, guys.
Xander, boy, can I. How much time do we got, guys?
First, I should say, we'll probably hold off on Dr. Oddfellow details because once he is, as we assume, would be announced, we will kind of do a deep dive into Oddfellow. So we'll hold off on that one. However, we can discuss the rumor of Monsters Paris. And Jess, you are the one to lead that. Yes, please do.
Thank you. So if it's just the monsters that we know are based in Paris, for sure, that would be Phantom of the Opera and the Hunchback of Notre Dame. So, I mean, obviously there's a Disney movie about Hunchback. It'll show you that he's an outcast, but if you really want to see like the original monster movies, I would watch them because they're actually kind of terrifying. And I think Hunchback was one of like the first ones that was done or something like that. I just know that it really fucked the actor up. But definitely look into that. And then Phantom of the Opera, just any of the lore with that story. There's obviously a musical. It's not going to be based on that, but you can really watch the monster movies. And then if you want to kind of go off of there and see any of the adaptations, the musical is a good place to start just for the imagery. But yeah, I would really look into those two. And then they could probably shoehorn in, they were talking about Jekyll and Hyde, The Invisible Man, any of the ones that are in Europe, I guess. Dracula's in Europe. Yeah. But we can go more into it once it's actually announced and maybe do like a list of movies to watch or something like that. But yeah.
I'm excited for it. That's what I got to add.
We'll do some deep dives.
It's a really exciting property. I really think it's cool. I know we've talked about it a bit about how, last year it was a good house, but also it was kind of just the normal monsters, the Dracula, the Wolfman. Mummy was a little bit out there compared to the big three, but still you got Mummy, the main monsters. So it's nice to have a rumored house based on monsters that aren't really, don't really get enough representation at HHN. I think that's probably the most exciting thing about this house, in addition to the sets and to see what creative story they tie in with this to really make them all connect together and to, just make another good Monsters house, because Monsters houses have not failed yet, which hopefully that streak continues.
It's really fresh, and I'm curious to see how they tie into each other. And just like the scenic of being in like the old streets of Paris is really exciting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then, like we said, we promise we'll get you a deep dive on Oddfellow as soon as an announcement about that does come. But just a quick thing. Oddfellow was the owner of the carnival that Jack worked for. He murdered some children. Oddfellow didn't like that because he was getting some heat on his tail already and didn't want that being a problem. So he killed Jack. And that's basically it. And Jack came out looking for revenge. That's the very base of what it is, just to give you a little baseline of it. But thank you so much for your voicemail, Xander. Hopefully we can hear from you again.
All right. As always, you can find us on Twitter, Instagram, Threads, and YouTube at HHN365, and on TikTok at HHN365pod. Join us on our Discord. The link is in the description. And take a look at our merch shop, HHN365.com. Always leave us a voicemail at 407-906-4134. And if you get a chance, go ahead and take a look at our iTunes and our Spotify and leave us a review if you like. We don't ask too often, but I thought I would ask. And we'll see you in the streets.